Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome. As we have a big night tonight, a daf, and then a chumash here, and then the Mishnayos, the Triple Crown, sponsored by Baruch Ian, Lila Nishmas Yaakov Chaim and Abbas, the Bas Gittel Avram and Shmuel HaKohen, sponsored by Shalom Fogel, Nishmas Yaakov Zev ben Yehuda, Rivka Bas Yaakov, Tzivya Miriam Bas Gad, Yosef ben Sion ben Yaakov Zev, by Abi Spry for Nachas from children and grandchildren, and Yaakov Yumansky for Akos Tov to the Rav and Zoom family, and Nachas from children and grandchildren, Ed Saleh from London, and Joshua Rosenberg, a virtual Talmud. We also learned tonight Lila Nishma's Rezel Malka, Basra Chaim, and Hashem should have an aliyah. We are also, I want to just remind the Olam that I put on the Zoom chat. Not to forget, the Olam should not forget to be Menachem Avel, our Chaver Adaf Abe Arbach, who lost his father, and the number is on the chat over there for Abe, and he comes on very regularly, so we should certainly. I spoke to him today, and actually I spoke about his father on one of the shiurim, and it got to him, and he let his mother listen to it, and it was really a good thing. Shelley got stuck a little bit by the Panama Canal, but he's back. And we welcome in Irving Fishbaum, Dr. Guy, Saba, Chaim Kramer, Berish Gesserman, Stephen Holtzman, and in the shul we welcome in Michal Avram, and we welcome in Rich Leonard, who's lurking in the back, and Ruvain Shannon. Anybody else? Not yet. Okay. And Marshall Castle, Michal Akhtar, Baruch Ian, Ruvain Pollack, Yitzi Fuchs, Dr. Block, Yisrael Fisher, Nachman Chapler, Shelley Zeitlin, Rabbi Kranz, Avram Rezepkowitz, Ilya Shutman, Yitzi Mahler, Yehuda Shmuel Eisenberg, good to have you. David Helfgott on Kol Lashon. We are holding, the Gemara says actually we're by the two dots on the bottom of Nun Vav Amud Beis, where it tells us Shloisha Achim ve'echad mitztaref imayim. If, let's say, you had Mel, as we said, had a land, and Shalom Fogel occupied it for 3 years, and Shalom bought 3 sets of witnesses. He brought Shelley, who witnessed all 3 years of his occupation, and each year Shelley testified with a different brother. So the first year he testified with Ruvain, the second year he testified with Shimon, and the third year he testified with Levi. We said that that's a good testimony, because even though brothers cannot give testimony together, because you can't have Kroivim as 2 Eidim, but here each year is a separate Eidus. And therefore, the first year was Ruvain and Shelley, the second year was Shimon and Shelley, and the third year is Levi and Shelley. That's okay, because you don't have any one Eidus with Kroivim. Now the Gemara attempts to make an analogy, but we will see that it is not analogous. Like the Gemara tells us, top of Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, Zon, in the schus of our learning, Hashem should be Zon u'mefarnes us. In this week's Pasha, as I will speak in the Chumash here, a person should not feel that it's koichi v'oitzim yadi. It's not us, it's the Rebbeinu Shalom that gives us all our prosperity. So, in the schus of our learning, Nun Zayin, Hashem should be Zanoi Sanu. He should support us. Hahushtara, there was a document, there was a document that Chatzkel and Shmuel were signed on, that Shalom bought a field from Mel. It was signed. And it was signed by Chatzkel and Shmuel. Now, when Shalom brings the shtar, so he has to authenticate it. He has to have either the witnesses verify their signatures. The problem is that Shmuel died. So Shmuel can't verify his signature, he's dead. So now Shalom has to bring to court two witnesses that will verify that that's Shmuel's signature. Now the first witness on the shtar, Chatzkel, had a brother. Chatzkel has a brother, Chanoch. Chanoch and Shelley come to verify Shmuel's signature. So Mel starts yelling, "What do you mean? Crive him!" Right? Because the first signature is Chatzkel. And now Chatzkel's brother Chanoch, together with Shelley, is verifying the other signature, Shmuel. So he yells, "Crive him!" So the Gemara wants to say, no, it's two separate things. Chatzkel is one signature, but Chanoch, his brother, is testifying on something else together with Shmuel, just to verify Shmuel's signature. So let's see it inside. Aushtara, there was a document, Avichasima Lebeit Trey. Two witnesses were signed on it, Chatzkel and Shmuel. Shachiv Chad Minay. Shmuel died. So Chatzkel verifies his signature. Now you need two witnesses to verify that that's Shmuel's signature. So Asa Achva Dahai Dekai. So Chatzkel's brother Chanoch and V'chad and Shelley come come to verify Shmuel's signature. So Savar Ravina Lameima, Ravina thought to say, Hainu Gimel Achim ve'echad mitztarefim. That's the case in our Mishnah, but Ruvain could combine with Shelley for the first year, and Shimon with Shelley for the second year, and Levi with Shelley for the third year, because it's three different testimonies. And here also, Chatzkel is one signator. Chanoch is, his brother is testifying about the other signature. Says the Gemara, no. Amalei Ravashi mi dami. Hasam loy nafik nake riva de mamayna apuma da'ache. There we don't have 3/4 of the money being taken away on the testimony of brothers. Because in the case where Reuben, Shimon, and Levi testified together with Shelley about the 3 years of the occupancy, the brothers are only doing half. Right? Because it's half of the testimony of the first year, half of the testimony of the second year, and half of the testimony of the third year. So it's not more than 50%. Over here, 3/4 of the testimony will be done by brothers, by relatives. Hacha, says the Gemara, nafik nake riva de mamayna apumi de ache. 3/4 comes by the word of relatives. Why? Because think about it. The shtar is signed by Chatzkel and Shmuel. Chatzkel is 50% and Shmuel is 50%. Now, Shmuel died. So 50% is Chatzkel. Chatzkel's brother Chanoch and Shelley testified to verify Shmuel's signature. So that means that the half of Chatzkel and 1/4 of verifying Shmuel is done by brothers, by Chatzkel and Chanoch. So that's 3/4. You can't have 3/4 of a document by relatives. Now, so we welcome in Shalom Fogel, Aaron Swade. The Mishnah tells us, what does here Marshall Marshall is occupying Beresh's land. If Marshall does a certain type of occupation for 3 years, can he say that since Beresh did not protest, that he bought the rights for this kind of usage? So the Mishnah says, Eilu dvarim sheyesh lahem chazaka. The following behavior, if Marshall did it for 3 years, he gets a chazaka, and Beresh can't tell him, get out. The Eilu dvarim she'ein lahem chazaka. The following behavior does not give him a right, even if he does it for 3 years. Now, first the Gemara is going to tell us what behavior that Marshall does, that even if he does it for 3 years, Beresh could tell him, beat it, get out, which Marshall is very used to hearing. Hayamamid behema b'chotzer. If Marshall kept animals in Beresh's courtyard, tanner, an oven, rekayim, a mill, the kirayim, a double stove, or megalal tarnagoyim, or chickens, v'noisin zivloi b'chotzer, or he was storing his manure in the courtyard, ein a chazaka. Beresh could say, look, I was a nice guy, I let him do it, now I don't want him there anymore. And Marshall can't say, well, if I didn't buy the rights to you, you wouldn't have been quiet for 3 years. Beresh will say, no, I'm just a nice guy. However, but if Marshall not only kept his animals there, but he made a pen with walls 10 tvachim high for his animal. V'chein l'tanor, or he kept an oven with a barrier around it. V'chein l'kirayim, or a double stove. V'chein l'rechayim, or a mill. Hichnes tarnagolim l'seich habayis, or if he brought his chickens into Beresh's house. Or v'asa makam l'zivloi, or he made a pit for his manure in Beresh's property. Amak shloisha, deep 3 tvachim, or gevaya shloisha, or he encircled it with a fence, high 3 tvachim, harizu chazaka. If he did this 3 years, then if Beresh didn't protest for 3 years, Marshall could say he bought the rights, and Beresh could not tell him sayonara. Now, Maishna Reisha, Maishna Seifa. The Gemara asks, what's the difference to Reisha the Seifa? Most people won't tolerate people keeping their animals on the courtyard for 3 years. Most people won't tolerate chickens or waste. So why, in the first case, Marshall doesn't get a chazaka, and only in this latter case, Marshall does have a chazaka? Amar Ula, so first Ula throws out the following possibility. Kol she'ilu b'nichse ager kana, any activity that's so possessive that it would acquire the property of a ger that died, kana b'nichse chavera, gives Marshall a right. After 3 years, Beresh can't tell him to leave. B'nichse chavera kana. Kol she'ilu b'nichse ager loy kana, if it won't acquire the property of a ger, then b'nichse chavera loy kana, then it wouldn't be enough for him to say, you didn't protest for 3 years, I must have bought the rights for me. Says the Gemara, I'm sorry, but there's no correlation. It doesn't compute. Maskvla Rav Sheshes of Klalu, is this a principle? It's not. V'harei nir, if you plowed the land, which is definitely an improvement, then menichse ager kana, if you did that to land that a ger died, and it's up to the first one who makes an improvement, Marshall would acquire it. But b'nichse chavera loy kana, but we said if you plow somebody's field for 3 years, that's not a chazaka, because we said the person is laughing. You want to plow my land and improve it for me? Go right ahead. And the other way is also true. Achilas Paris, if you just ate crops, the b'nichse ager, the nichse chavera kana, if you ate crops for 3 years, that is a good chazaka. But in the property of a ger, you don't acquire it. Like we said, if you just cut down branches on one side to give it to your animals, you don't acquire the nichse ger. So therefore, one does not have anything to do with the other. And back to the drawing board. Ella, as we proceed, welcoming in Gedalia Engel, bottom line of Nun Zayin Amud Aleph, Ella, excuse me, Ella Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua. Rav Nachman says, in the name of Rabba Baravua, here we're talking about, there's more tolerance. We're talking about a courtyard of partners. Here we're talking about where Marshall was a partner with Berish. A partner is going to have much more tolerance. If one partner just keeps his animals there, or just keeps his oven there, or just keeps his mill there, Berish is not going to be makbid. But a mechitza kopte. But he would be makbid if he builds a wall around it, and therefore if he did that for 3 years and Berish didn't say anything, he must have bought the rights from him. Says the Gemara, Ubahamode kedi loy kapte, is a partner not makbid if he just puts it there? V'tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, hashutfin shenodru hanozeh bezeh. If Marshall, if Berish vowed, if Berish vowed that Marshall can't have hana from him, so in such a case, and Marshall vowed that Berish can't have any hana from him, so asurli kanes l'chatzin, they're not allowed to come into the courtyard. Now, if that's something that nobody would mind, so then that's not considered a benefit, and then it should be allowed. So that would seem to be that even standing there, a person does mind. And then we're back to the drawing board, so then why, if he just puts in the oven, is it not a chazaka after 3 years? El Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rabba Baravua, you see, in the olden days, times were very different. Today, a backyard is very used for living purposes. In the olden days, the living purpose was in the front yard. In front of all the houses, they had a courtyard. And that courtyard, especially in tropical climates, that courtyard was their dining room, it was their living room, that's where they lived. Now, everybody had a small little area in the back of their house called the rechava. The rechava was used for storage. It was a back lot for storage. So the Gemara says, since that's not used for living purposes, people were less makbid. So therefore, Marshall and Berish were partners, and they had a back lot. Everybody agrees, like kapte. Everybody agrees in the back lot, nobody would mind. Marshall would not mind if Berish put something there, an oven, a mill, some manure, nor vice versa. But b'mechitza kapte, they would be makbid if you start setting up walls. The truth of the matter is that in just coming in and standing there or setting up an oven or manure, so there are different attitudes amongst owners, amongst partners. The ika de kapte, the ika de loy kapte. There are some that mind, there are some that don't mind. Gabi mamayna lekula. By money we go leniently, and therefore, as to a chazaka we go leniently. We say hamaytz mechavel varaya, and we say that the fact that he stood it there for 3 years, we could say that Berish didn't mind, and therefore he doesn't have a chazaka. But by Nedarim, that's Isura. There we say, Gabi Isura, L'chumra, we say maybe he does mind, and therefore it's considered a benefit, and therefore he can't enter into the courtyard. Ravina Amalaylam Loikapta. Partners do not mind. If partners don't mind, if they said that they weren't going to benefit from one another, why aren't they allowed to go in? V'amani Rebbe Eliezer. Rebbe Eliezer has a very chumradika opinion about vows. And that is, if Berish said that Marshall can't benefit from him, if Berish said that Marshall can't benefit from him, then if Berish is a grocer, and the grocer usually gives a little extra on the top of the pound, he's not allowed to give that to Marshall, even though he gives it to everybody for free. So that's called viter. That even with what normally people are mavater on, you're not allowed to do to somebody who's not allowed to benefit from you. And that's therefore, even if people are not makbid that somebody stands there when he's a shutef, but if he's not allowed to benefit, he can't even do that. And that's what the Gemara says. V'amani Rebbe Eliezer, the Tani Rebbe Eliezer, ma'afilu viter, even that which people are mavater, and even the extra topping that the grocer gives for free, also b'muda no, you can't give it to somebody who's not allowed to benefit from it. Now, Amar Rav Yochanan, bakol shutfin ma'akvin zeh. Any activity, a partner could say, I don't want you to do it. In other words, partners have a right to protest. And therefore, a partner can protest. I don't want you to put an oven or a double stove there because I want to have more empty space so that we could play pickleball. You know, I want to be able to do races, to do cartwheels. The only thing that a partner can't be ma'akiv, chutz min akvisa. It can't be ma'akiv the woman doing a wash. Why? Because if they don't do the wash in the courtyard, they have to go down to the lake. And for a woman to wade into the lake and lift up her dress is not tznius. And that's what the Gemara says. Bakol shutfin ma'akvin zeh chutz min akvisa, except for a watch. She'ein darkan shel b'nai Yisrael is bazois al akvisa. It's not the derech of Yiddish women to go and shame themselves by lifting up their dress when they have to do the wash and go into the water. Now the pasuk praises a person who doesn't look at women. The pasuk is a pasuk in Yeshaya. Oitem oiznai mishmaya damim. A person that closes his ears from listening about blood of other people, bad things. V'oitzim einav, and shuts his eyes me'ra'os bira, from seeing evil. Now, what does that mean? V'oitzim einav me'ra'os bira. Amar Rab Chiya bar Abba zeh she'ein mistakel b'nashim. This is a person that doesn't look at women b'shah she'oimdes ala kvisa, when she's doing the wash. Now, the pasuk over here is praising this as a ben aliyah, as doing something extra, some act of purity. The Gemara says, "Hey, chidami, what's the case? If you could go with a different path besides getting to your destination by going to the beach, then Rashu, then you're being wicked. And either lekadar chachrita, and if there's no other way, listen, you got to get home. Anasu, you can't blame the person, he's an inus. Lailam de lekadar chachrita. There is no other way. So if there's no other way, what should he do? He should put himself under duress and make sure that his head doesn't look up, that he doesn't even see the women with his peripheral vision, and that such a person is praiseworthy. That's an oitzav einav mira'is birah. Now, just an interesting thing over here, that if you're in a drugstore and you got to get to the back to where the prescription is, so you got to cross through the aisles. Now, you can get to the back by going through one of three aisles. If one of the aisles has a girl wearing shorts, very short shorts, and you take that aisle, the Gemara calls you a Russia. What are you walking behind her? You could have gone with the aisle where she wasn't there. Very strict words over here. Now the Gemara talks about some rabbinical etiquette over here. The cloak of a Talmid Chacham, how long should it be? So kol she'ein b'sarai nira mechtachtav. It should reach all the way down to the bottom of his feet. They didn't wear pants. So it should reach all the way down to his shoes so that you don't see his skin. People want to know, how come, Rabbi Weiss, you play tennis, you play paddleball, you play pickleball? Why don't you wear shorts like everybody else? There's a certain way that a Talmid Chacham has to dress. They say, well, then you shouldn't play pickleball. No, Talmid Chacham, it's very healthy for a Talmid Chacham to get exercise for many reasons. Very healthy for a Talmid Chacham to have camaraderie, but there's a certain way of dress for a Talmid Chacham. Now, talis shel Talmidei Chacham ketzad, the talis was worn over the cloak. So how far should that go? This was not like our talis today, but this was the overcloak, which was a four-cornered garment. So it should cover the cloak, except for a tefach. Kol she'ein chalukah nira mitachtav, you shouldn't see the undercloak more than a tefach. This was an etiquette. It's interesting that the Atzko brings down a Mishnah Melech that says, when it says kol she'ein b'sarei nira mitachtav, it's not talking about how low it goes. It's talking about the thickness of the cloak. That the thickness of the cloak shouldn't be for such thin material that when walking in sunlight, people will see through it. Kol she'ein, women. Sometimes women, they go out on a Friday in robes, and it's early Shabbos, and some of the robes are of such light material that mamish, when the sun hits it, you could see through to their bodies. You can't do that. Now, shulchan shel Talmidei Chachamim ketzad. The table of a Talmid Chacham, how is it covered? Now, it recommends the following. Shnei shlishay gedil, 2/3 of the width of the table should be covered with a tablecloth. Gedil means a woven cloth. V'shlish gloy, and 1/3 of it is uncovered. And on the uncovered part, the olav ka'arais, in other words, they sat on one side. On the other side, they had the karas, the plates, v'yerek, and vegetables. In other words, so that the tablecloth shouldn't get sullied. Now, they didn't have that much room in the olden days. So the table did not stay in the middle of the room the whole day. They didn't have enough room that they could take it up all the time with the table. So the table was removed, and the pedestals were put in corners, and the table itself hung on the wall with a big hook. So the ring that they hung up the table, the tabatoi mibchutz, the ring was protruding on the outside, on the part where they had the vegetables and the pots. Why? Because they didn't want the ring to be on the inside, and somebody, when sitting down, might bang into it. Says the Gemara about Tanya tabatoi mibifnim, that the ring was on the inside where people were sitting, so that it shouldn't get in the way of the waiter. So the Gemara says, like kasha diiki yanuka deleki yanuka. One is where there are young children sitting on the inside. If there are young children sitting on the inside, we don't want to put the ring there because they'll pull on it and they'll capsize the table. Or deleki yanuka, where there's no children, then they put it on the inside, not to get in the way of the waiter. There were no children. If there was a waiter or there wasn't a waiter. If there was a waiter, so then they put the ring on the inside, so the waiter shouldn't bang into it. If there was no waiter, wasn't a rich family, then they put the ring on the outside. Both are talking about where there's a waiter. In the day, they could put the ring on the outside because the waiter will see it. In the night, where there's only dim candlelight, so the waiter might miss the ring, then they put it on the inside. Okay, Baruch Hashem, we finished the first round of this evening, and now, without further ado, we're going to go straight to the Chumash here.